Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the September Interim Joint Committee meeting on agriculture. Appreciate everyone being here today. As we always do in this committee, we're going to start off with the pledge. Would you please rise? Thank you. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Chambers Armstrong.
Here.
Senator Boswell. Senator Carpenter. Senator Deneen. Senator Givens. Senator Thayer.
Here.
Senator Webb. Senator West. Senator Westerfield. Senator Wilson. Representative All.
Here.
Representative Clines. Representative Dixon. Representative Pfister.
Here.
Representative Graham.
Here.
Representative Hale.
Here.
Representative Kim King.
Present.
Representative Cook. Representative McPherson.
Here.
Representative Neighbors.
Here.
Representative Pollock.
Here.
Representative Pratt.
Here.
Representative Reed.
Here.
Representative Stalker.
Present.
Representative Stevenson.
Here.
Representative Tate. Representative Thomas. Representative Tipton.
Here.
Chairman Howe.
Here.
And Co-Chairman Representative Heath.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Does anyone have any guests before we get started they'd like to introduce? If not, we've had minutes distributed. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Got a motion and a second. We vote on that, right? All in favor of approving the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. That carries. Our first item up is Dr. Cox from University of Kentucky coming and talking to us about where we are in the state of agriculture in the University of Kentucky. Ms. Cox, would you please come up? Yeah, I didn't want to exclude anybody. Bring anybody you want to up there. You know the drill.
Thank you, Senator Howell. I am joined by Jamie Matthews, who is the director of the Agricultural Experiment Station here or at UK, and is the person behind a lot of our building projects. Okay, great. Well, thank you, Senator Howell and Co-Chair Heath and members of the committee. It is certainly our honor today to provide you an update on the Martin-Gatton College of Agriculture, Food and Environment at the University of Kentucky. We have a lot of responsibilities to serve the state. As many of you know, we have the 120 county extension offices and an extensive extension program. We have many academic departments, research and support units. We raise animals and we farm. We have a joint research laboratory with the U.S. Department of Agriculture Research Service, and we are planning a building in association with that. We have research farms. We have 3 4-H camps. We have the Robinson Forest, the Veterinary Diagnostic Lab, the Small Business Development Center, and an Equine Research Institute. So we cover a lot of service needs for the state. And as one of the 2 land-grant universities in the state, we take that mission seriously, and we collaborate a whole lot with Kentucky State University, both in our academic programs and in our county extension offices. Your investment, for which we thank you so many times, absolutely allows us to leverage support and yield dividends for Kentucky. Just a few statistics about multiplier effects. People have studied diagnostic labs. There's a $30 payback for every dollar a state invests in a diagnostic laboratory. Through our Small Business Development Center and other related programs, We have facilitated nearly $72 million in business loans and equity. As you all well know, Cooperative Extension has a big reach, and we've reached 4.6 million Kentuckians in 2022. We had 694 graduates from the college last year. And the other statistic about your investment being leveraged, about $20 is returned to the American economy for every $1 invested in agricultural research. These are studies that have been conducted in this area. What you have made possible in terms of our students, we have currently about 2,495 students earning their degree at the College of Ag, Food, and Environment. We take pride in our first generation students and our ability to recruit and retain them. 56.4 are Kentucky residents, and we have a first to second year retention, which is an important statistic at the University of Kentucky, of 71.5%. I will comment on the 56.4 of Kentucky residents. That statistic in our college, we have a lot of out-of-state students that come for equine programs. So that is the preponderance of out-of-state students from basically all the states and several foreign countries that we have in our equine program. So we like to say it's an equine brain gain instead of an equine brain drain for the College of Agriculture. We also, and Dr. Matthews is in charge of the grant department for the Martin-Gatton College of Agriculture, but we do leverage with external grants that support research that is always aimed at improving Kentucky agriculture industry and communities. 17.9 million federal, 12.4 from the state. These are grants from the state. Industry grants of 940,000. 5.3 from nonprofits such as our commodity groups, cattlemen, corn, soybean, and all, and then other amounts add up to that 40.9 million. So this is a measure of when you get research grants, when you have a college that gets a lot of research grants, it's a measure of our faculty's leadership in the national ag research community. When we're able to get grants like this, it means we're respected and our work is respected. So it's a real mark of distinction for any ag college to be able to say that we can compete for grants to add value to what we are doing. Also, Cooperative Extension, such a wonderful organization, and it's growing and changing in positive ways. We like to say we're hardwired into the counties. We're high touch within the counties, and we're hyper local. We work in areas of community and economic development, 4-H youth development, agriculture and natural resources, family and consumer sciences, and as I mentioned before, partnerships throughout all these mission areas with Kentucky State University. And I will also note that the family and consumer science area is increasingly important as we add more programs in collaboration with UK Healthcare, UK Dentistry, UK Nursing, Diabetes Institute. The family and consumer sciences agents across our state are important links to having our citizens understand health and health care better. So that's a kind of growing new area. But we really appreciate the support of you all for the extension program. And we are always, as land-grant university, you always try to do better tomorrow than today, but we're always trying to do better, but we feel like we're in a pretty good path for serving the state. Just probably not all of our industry partners, and I won't go into all of them, but we have daily contact with the Martin-Gatton College of Agriculture staff and faculty and agents, daily contact with our partners listed on this screen. We work together hand in hand. We plan research together to serve the state, and we appreciate these partners. We would not be able to function without their advice and counsel and just in general, great collaborative nature. So I wanted to mention, I named the college a little differently. I named it the Martin-Gatton College of Agriculture. We had a gift from the Bill Gatton Foundation. You can see his picture there, shaking hands with President Capilouto. He has deceased. And about a year after his death, we celebrated the Martin-Gatton College of Agriculture investment of $100 million over 20 years, primarily to grow our human capital. So we have the goals of enriching, educating, and expanding the next generation of leaders. We have programs for this within the teaching mission, the extension mission, and the research mission for each one of these. So we're very excited about that opportunity. And this second one, unleashing the power of the human-animal bond, that was the one requirement that Mr. Gatton put on us for this money. He did have influence on it before he passed away. And it was it grew out of his appreciation for his dog and his cat, honestly, in his last years. But there are so many ways we will be working to collaborate with medical professionals on how pets contribute to well-being and medical care. We're very happy about that. The other, we do have a component for growing and building for the future inside and outside of the classroom. Our students all do things outside of the classroom, not just in class. And then an innovation fund. We will be able with this innovation fund to take advantage of the Bucks for Brains program through the Research Challenge Trust Fund. So we will be announcing 3 cutting-edge faculty recipients of these programs. So we're very appreciative of Mr. Gatton and those that follow him leading the Gatton Foundation. The man in the blue suit in the picture is Danny Don, the foundation principal. And of course, on the other side of Capilouto, Mike Ritchie, who I'm sure many of you know, and Mike was pivotal to securing this gift for the college. We thank him. Now, we also were asked to talk about disaster, rebuild, and recovery at Princeton. And I will already go ahead and say that if you have any questions on this, Dr. Matthews will be answering them later because he has been involved on a day-to-day basis. But as you know, we are completely rebuilding Princeton from the tornado damage, and we have gone as fast as we can to get the new building plans in place. What you see in the top right are our temporary buildings, our portable buildings that we have put in to try to keep research going. No doubt we lost a little research progress. We lost samples. We lost samples that students had when those buildings were destroyed. But the folks involved in this center are very resilient. And so we have the temporary offices, 9 buildings completed or almost complete. The big building, the bid date is September of this year. Now, the completion is hoped for the May of 2025. That will be the 100th year anniversary of the Princeton Center. And then I won't go into the farm shop, field processing building, and residence hall, but those are also set for completion before the larger building is. And we will be better and stronger after this rebuild. Thank you all for providing the money, the funding for shoring up shoring up things that FEMA and other insurance did not pay. So we've really appreciated that and tried to use that money very wisely. We also, in July of the next year, after the Princeton tornado, we had the flooding in eastern Kentucky for our Robinson State Center for Appalachian Resource Sustainability, better known as Quicksand, I think would be the name that you should remember. But anyway, we have had a lot of repair, $4.25 million in repair expenses approved to date. Repairs to existing facilities. We have 2 new facilities out for bid, and we're using insurance and pursuing FEMA funds right now. We have not applied for Eastern Kentucky SAFE funds. But I think the point I better make, or would be best to make, is our clients in the counties that we serve had similar damage, and extension agents really doubled their workload to try to help our citizens for this devastation. Facility renewal for the Martin-Gatton College of Agriculture. Just wanted to report a few highlights as we go through the next slides. The Thomas Poe Cooper House, which is a house that sat on the corner of Limestone and Cooper Drive, and it was empty for many years, but it was the former home of Dean Thomas Poe Cooper, who was dean from 1918 to 1951, and it was his residence. There was a farm around it. It was purchased as an experiment station because we used to have farm facilities right on campus, and then it became the house for the dean, an august leader of agriculture whose legacy we're celebrating. Incidentally, Tom Hammond, the NBC sportscaster, is Thomas Poe Cooper's grandson, and he spent time in that house during his childhood. Associated with that, and really right next door, funded by external philanthropy, the James B. Beam Institute for Kentucky Spirits has been dedicated, and it is the largest operational teaching and research distillery in the world. And right next to it, you can see on the bottom left of the lower section is the barrel facility donated by Independent Stave and the Boswell Family Foundation. So that corridor now has really updated the campus, has updated that corner of the street, and the Cooper House itself will be a place where we bring parents and their students to get to know UK, have their first visit, kind of transcend the modern to the past, and then the other end of that road is our Good Barn, which also is a symbol of the past and the future. So we're really happy about that. And we're also have the opportunity to build what we're calling a modern land-grant College of Agriculture. We had not had a classroom facility since the 90s for our college, and I'm proud that President Capilouto also uses the word dilapidated facilities when he talks about what we have right now. But most notably, the Garrigus building, which is on the top of on the left-hand side, it's actually, what is that building? Both of those are Garrigus building, aren't they? Yeah. And then on the right top is the Ag North building and some greenhouses. And so all of those will be demolished to make way for the UK hospital expansion. I'm sure that, I know that President Capilouto discussed this yesterday during some testimony he gave here. And so all those things are going to go. And we are going to have, across Cooper Drive, we will have more facilities planned. So we are grateful for the hospital, for UK Healthcare, for this opportunity. And projects that are underway, Scoville Hall, which actually has the word Ag Experiment Station written on the building, will become our building again. 92,000 square feet there. A Barnhart addition, a classroom. The Scoville is on the top. The Barnhart is in the middle. A new classroom building, and then the USDA Agricultural Research Service Lab, which was dedicated in May with Leader McConnell. That will be also in that corridor and estimated to be completed by May of 26. So those are projects that are underway. Those are not the ones, I guess the Scoville one is instigated or because of the hospital project, but we're also looking at two others that are the subject of the capital request in this session. And these, again, are replacing Garrigus and Ag North, where we had a lot of our animal and plant research and many of our faculty in these buildings. And the project scope is $250 million, 190,000 square feet. We have teaching labs, an auditorium, a greenhouse and head house, plant diagnostic lab, which serves the state every day, horticulture department, entomology department, animal and food science, plant and soil science. Those last two departments are very large departments. And the timeline is pretty accelerated because of the hospital transition. Phase 1 completion May 26, and Phase 2 completion January 2027. So these buildings will allow us to really, I think, reflect the appropriate capacity for the modern kind of researchers and faculty we have. Will make us more competitive. It will vastly expand the quality of teaching space. The kind of classrooms that are desirable right now are the ones that are called smart classrooms and new learning environments, and we'll have those things in these new facilities. So these are very important to the future trajectory of the work that we do in the college. But the biggest thing is we're going to have facilities that match the quality of our people and the dedication. So we're very hopeful about this opportunity. The other capital request that we have is the Meat and Food Workforce Development Center. Again, this is something Dr. Matthews has been intimately involved in planning. We have a $75 to $85 million project scope with 64,000 square feet. We're including UK Meat Lab and industry clinics, poultry research and processing, teaching space, industry training space. We want to be a place where the food processors across Kentucky can come and learn and try out equipment and try out processes and help us take the risk of any changes they would want to make by testing them first. An animal pavilion, occupational health and safety outreach, the Food is Health Alliance, which is our effort at the Martin-Gatton College to tie food and producers and medical personnel and everything in between to demonstrate that Kentucky produces healthy products in a demonstration kitchen. The timeline is aligned with the demolition of the Garrigus building. So when we first conceived of this Meat and Food Workforce Development Center, we didn't know the UK hospital tower was coming in and that Garrigus would be demolished. And the Garrigus Meat Science Lab and processing space has trained thousands of workers, for example, from Kroger in the meat industry. It has trained students. It has been involved in many grants, millions of dollars worth of grants, because we do a lot of research on what the meat is like. And Dr. Greg Grinfro is in the back of the room, and that is his program. And he has outreach all over the state, and he trains people and he teaches students. The department chair, I'd also like to recognize of Animal and Food Science, the new department chair, Dr. Scott Radcliffe, is in the back of the room as well. And so we're very excited about this project. And workforce is a big part of the name. We want to help the meat processing workforce produce a safe product in a way that the workers are safe and the animals are humanely handled. So that's the goal we have for this Meat and Food Workforce Development Center. So I will conclude again by thanking you for your support and your feedback that you provide to the College of Agriculture, Food, and Environment on a frequent basis, and to hopefully reinforce the opportunities ahead of us will make us able to serve the state's agriculture industry even better. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? I believe Representative King has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Dr. Cox. I always appreciate all of your updates. And Mercer County wants to brag on Dr. Matthews. We appreciate all of the good work he does. He represents Mercer County well. Over the last few decades, agriculture has increasingly fed not only Kentuckians, but Americans and our global neighbors. I was just wondering if any of the research projects have looked into how developments, how concrete is covering over some of our best agriculture production lands. I know that is a local government consideration. Fayette County is really deliberating that right now. But I was just wondering if your students or your into how that might be affecting how we're going to feed people in the future.
Absolutely. Several researchers within the Ag Economics program that we have in the college are looking at that. One of our experts, Allison Davis, the Community and Economic Development in Kentucky, SEDEC leader, she is advising in Fayette County right now. And it is a tough issue, Representative King. And of course, I always say in Fayette County, don't expect the ag dean not to want to preserve the farms, so that's the one thing we can be political on, I think, a little bit. But definitely a huge problem, and in many developed countries is to have enough land to produce food.
I believe next we have Representative All has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got one comment and one question, if I may. I just want to start by thanking Dean Cox for your many years of leadership, your dedication and professionalism to the College of Agriculture, now the Martin-Gatton College of Agriculture, and how long you've been leading that institution is quite remarkable. And she is my constituent, so I have to brag on her just a little bit, and we're proud to have the impact there in Fayette County. We talked about the extension services and your offices there in the local counties, and I think it would be helpful if you could give us roughly how many people you have in total that are employed by the College of Agriculture. It has a very large footprint, not just in Lexington, but statewide. So if you could share roughly what that number is.
Thank you, Representative All. About 2,000 employees statewide, with around 1,000 not in Lexington. And if you think about the counties, the rural nature of many of the counties, I feel like our extension presence is highly, highly valued in the more rural and less economically advantaged counties.
As someone who spent a lot of time in some of those extension offices, I agree, and I just want to thank you for what you've been doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. I believe Representative Tipton has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dean Cox, it's good to have you here with me. I wore my University of Kentucky tie this morning, knowing that you would be here. I'm a 1981 graduate of the College of Agriculture. I'll let my colleagues figure out my age if they can do the math. But you had Mike Ritchie in the picture. He's a constituent of mine. He's actually who recruited me to the College of Agriculture back when I started in the fall of '77. So I've got a strong feelings for the college, for the work there. I do have some questions. I'm going to ask probably 2 or 3 questions, and I'll let you comment. Do we have any farming operations, research operations still going on what was the Coldstream farm? And also, if you could update us on the Woodford County farm. I see our cattleman friends here and what's going on about that discussion about a livestock center out there. And since the sale of the dairy and removal of that, what is the university doing as far as dairy research right now?
Okay, thank you. To start with Coldstream, we are phasing out agriculture operations on Coldstream. As far as the Woodford County farm, certainly I think many in this room know that we have a partnership with the Kentucky Cattlemen's Foundation and Kentucky Cattlemen's Association. And the ultimate result, if we're all successful, will be side-by-side compatible units on the Woodford County farm to serve the beef industry and consumers, and also other commodity groups as well. And I'm glad, I kind of felt like you were going to ask me about the dairy. And the fellow I introduced in the back of the room, Dr. Scott Radcliffe, the Department Chair of Animal and Food Sciences, has already started discussions on how we can better serve the dairy industry. We've got some retirements. We've got potential partnerships with other universities that are all in play right now. But we want to serve the dairy industry in the best way we can. If it's not having a dairy on UK campus, what is it? Where is that dairy? Will there be a dairy? Those questions are all circulating around right now, and so glad for Dr. Radcliffe to be here because he's taken it on full force.
Sure.
I had a thought during your conversation. Dr. George Hershey recently passed away, and knew Dr. Hershey for many years, the dairy extension. He actually was I was on the state 4-H dairy judging team many years ago. I was also on the UK team after that, but he was a leader there, and I know I saw some pictures on Facebook. The state 4-H FFA and UK team were in Pennsylvania this past weekend judging, so it just came to mind, and I just want to give a shout out to Dr. Hershey and all the work he did for so many people across the state.
Thank you. He meant a lot to so many. Appreciate that.
I don't know if it'd be appropriate. You were talking about these dilapidated buildings, perhaps getting Representative Tipton involved, since he was apparently on campus before any of these dilapidated buildings were actually built, that he might have some unique perspective on.
I've been in that meats lab. It was called, I took live animal and carcass evaluation. On Tuesday, we looked at the animals on the hoof. On Thursday, we looked at them on the rack. So I've been down there. I know what they looked like.
I hope that was an 11 o'clock class to get you ready for lunchtime. Representative Cook, I believe, has a question.
I do. Thank you, Dean Cox. Thanks for being here today. How did we let Roundup get a noon game on Saturday? What are they doing to us?
Okay, that's out of my control entirely. Yeah.
Roundup's a big deal for anybody. College of Ag graduate. We all get there, come back, see friends.
And it's the 50th
Some of them
anniversary.
older friends, Representative Tipton. Since we're picking on him. But really looking forward to seeing everybody up there on Saturday.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions at this point. Going back through some of the stuff you're talking about with grant funding, and I don't want to get too deep in the weeds here or anything, but would you just kind of talk briefly about some of the things you do with connect the grant funding, the amounts in the funding to what we accomplish in the university, to just kind of give us an idea of what happens with some of that money?
Thank you, Senator Howell. I'm going to start out, and I think I'll probably turn it to Dr. Matthews to finish up. But our college, we're kind of like, we do research, like we're going to do, row spacing research or fertilizer or variety. We do research that's ready to use, and we also do research in the laboratory, the molecular reasons behind things. We do stuff in artificial intelligence. And so a lot of those things, when we're studying what DNA is in a virus, we study that for a while before we try to make a vaccine for it ultimately. But I'm trying to make the point, we do a lot of things that aren't ready for prime time that take maybe 5 to 10 or maybe even 20 years to get a product out. So we have federal grants for that, for some of those more basic things. And then we depend on our partners in commodity groups and other state agencies for a lot of the rest. Jamie, would you like to fill in?
Sure. Put my glasses on so I can see the. Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's one of the things that excites me the most about the possibility of getting these new buildings. We have no problem recruiting tremendous graduate students and faculty members for our farm facilities. But then when they come in to look at the labs, we lose them. And as Dean Cox says, a major thrust of our college has always been to connect what's important in the state to our producers to the biology behind it. And so we need to do both. And that's why even someone like my own program, where we had a very applied part of it, but we had a very basic part that was funded by the federal government. And so that's part of what you're seeing when you have $18 million in federal grant funding. What that's really a recognition of is the very basic high quality, futuristic, if you would, research that is going on. And then we're very proud of our balanced portfolio with our state and our tremendously strong relationships with our commodity groups. I mean, this is very, very important to us. We are the land grant. This is what we do, but we have to do both in this modern world. And we've, made some really good accomplishments in doing that and really look forward to the future. So again, from my perspective, one of the best things about my job is interviewing prospective faculty, and just anyone who thinks we're having problems in our world, you should get my job and interview all these wonderful people with this talent. And our goal is try to get these people here working for Kentucky. So that's, these buildings will really help us in that regard.
Thanks, and you kind of led me into the next one. I double-checked my math on this, but I still could screw it up. But can you kind of talk us through the reason for the build and build out cost for this project that you're proposing? If I did my math and double checked it correctly, a $250 million project on 190,000 square feet is roughly 1,300 and change a square foot. And I know that a lot of the research, a lot of the lab equipment and the lab process is very specialized and everything. But can you kind of talk us through what goes into to every $1,300 foot of this proposed project?
Sure. Well, in that, for example, the McConnell, the ARS building, that's coming in at about $1,250 a square foot. And a lot of it has to do with the infrastructure in there, the air handling, the clean lab environment, where we go from having, very dirty production, working with soil and some of the plants, all the way up to the molecular. It requires this kind of funding to build the facilities, the infrastructure to allow you to separate those operations. That'll be one of our challenges in the new building, where we will have animals in the basement to do pilot studies. At the same time, we have students and the laboratories going on. This requires this real separation. I'm not an engineer. I can't say it's this much is due to steel, this much due to copper, this much is due to concrete, but those are very typical costs.
Yeah, you addressed kind of what I was wondering. We understand bricks and steel from other building projects and everything. Is a lot of the excess cost on this? I think what I'm hearing you say is the fact that with the benefits of research is you deal with everything together. You're not completely separated with institutions to where you can keep things separated and clean. Is that a large part of it with the filtration and the cleanliness?
For example, the new building that currently is designed will have greenhouses on top, because this helps a lot and saves land, but also helps our researchers. But that requires a huge separation of waste stream, if you will, from fertilizers to pesticides to herbicides, all that having to be segregated from the inhabitants of those buildings. Anyone who's had your pesticide certification gets some inkling of what goes on there. So it's really a segregation of capacities and safety.
And thank you. And thanks for coming in today and talking through us. Thanks for the good questions everyone had, and appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Next up, we're going to kind of double up. We're looking at some time constraints for a bunch of our members, so we're going to try to kind of double up and have Dave Morris, Executive Director for Ag Marketing, and Dale Dobson, the Safety Administration for Kentucky Department of Agriculture. If you two guys can come up together, please. Introduce yourself for the record, and you may begin.
There we go. Good morning. Thank you for inviting us today to present. I'm Dave Morris, the Deputy Executive Director of the Office of Marketing at KDA. I'm pleased to share information about our efforts today. With me, I have Mr. Dale Dobson. I think most of you probably know him. He's been around for a long time. He's our safety administrator. Sorry.
Yes, please. Thank you.
How's that? That better?
Much better.
So we were asked to talk about our mission, our Raising Hope initiative. Many of you have observed the development of this coalition, which was initiated in 2020. We came together with a common mission among agriculturally interested academic, governmental, and mental health institutions and established Raising Hope, our brand name, in 2021. Our goal is to promote the health and safety of Kentucky farmers who are at elevated risk for suicide and accidents. We've worked together to develop programming and communications to support the holistic health of our state's farmers and farm families. Our partners, as it stands today, are UK, of course, Kentucky Cabinet for Health and Family Services, Penny Rural Center, where the 988 calls come in, excuse me, Kentucky Injury and Prevention and Research Center, Western Kentucky University, and the Southeast Center for Agricultural Health and Injury Prevention. Our first appropriation was out of a tobacco appropriation in 2020. We worked to match that funding and improve the National Suicide Hotline Center. We focused on counties in Kentucky with the most risk factors for suicide. Always following the data, we worked to put resources where they were needed most, and we were able to land a $500,000 federal FRSAN grant to support our efforts. We've increased our work since. In particular, you may have seen our social media, excuse me, and marketing campaign, or you may have seen the information about our Challenge Coin initiatives. I'm going to highlight some of our major accomplishments today, but first I want to explain some of the abbreviations. QPR stands for Question, Persuade, and Refer, a CPR of sorts for mental health that is available to the public. Crush training was adapted for agricultural specific audiences by the Southeast Center. That's one of the first activities of Raising Hope. Crush is an interactive online training module for healthcare providers and paraprofessionals that about preventing farmer suicide through cultural respect, understanding, sensitivity, and humility. And then AMSR training is assessing and managing suicide risk for clinicians in rural communities. We've had a number of accomplishments. We've helped to expand the National Suicide Crisis Center in Kentucky and upgraded their equipment. Last year, 988 was also rolled out as the 911 of mental health. Nationally, the hotline calls have increased by 40%, and our state was able to meet that need. We've advertised 988 to 2.1 million people so far, not counting personal touches and challenge coins where it's printed on the back of. We've also provided farmer-focused training to 988 operators, so when someone identifies as a farmer, those calls will be routed to the Penny Rural Center, where people, to someone who knows about farmer unique needs. We've also increased QPR suicide response training capacity in agricultural communities with over 600 trained healthcare professionals on how to help prevent suicide in agricultural communities through cultural humility, the Crush training. A continuing education course, over 380 people have taken that course. We've captured and shared farmer stories to show community appreciation, distributed almost 1,500 challenge coins as a caring support tool. We developed a youth curriculum for students ages 9 to 12 to be utilized and delivered by 4-H agents in educational settings across the state. Provided clinical training for rural mental health providers. Integrated communications and marketing campaigns with a reach of over 2.5 million. We've attended events that impacting 260,000 people, including over 2,500 health screenings. And at least 8 people are alive today attributed to the Raising Hope efforts. Here's an example of our visual social campaign. As you can see, the messaging has really resonated with the audience and then leads them to our website's resources. You may have been served with some of these digital ads. They've been curated and geographically targeted at farmers in the rural counties of Kentucky. We also had small grants for entities wanting to express appreciation to farmers. We completed 15 of these events in 22 and 23. Many were farmer appreciation dinners and events. One of our favorites, however, was the commissioning of a barn-sized banner in Burkesville, Kentucky. We've had requests, at least 20 requests for copies of this banner since this was rolled out. Our upcoming projects, UK is going to expand mental health first aid and training in agricultural populations. Enviromark's going to continue our marketing campaign, and we'll also be redoing our website to serve more groups and expand the resources. WKU will continue providing health screenings and education, and they're also finalizing an exhibit about farmers at the Kentucky Museum. The Printing Roll Center will receive funds to continue serving farmers with the 988 hotline, and the Southeast Center is also working to promote a rural youth curriculum. We've grown this brand really quickly, and with that came a lot of growing pains, so we're making an effort to get more organized. We recently created Raising Hope bylaws and are currently gathering advisory council candidates to present to the commissioner. Once the commissioner has those candidates, he will appoint 7 to the advisory council. We also created an organizational chart to clarify individual roles and responsibilities. And this is a big one. We entered into an agreement with Mental Health America, a 501(c)(3) to be a Raising Hope fiscal agent. The reason for that is because KDA doesn't have the authority to accept donations. So through this, we'll be able to take donations. It's only been a couple months. We've already received over $8,000. So, and KDA has also applied to trademark the Raising Hope logo. Here's our team. Just some of the names of the people involved of the coalition. We have a variety of people that represent farmers, health, communications, suicide best practice. This is a photo of us at our strategic planning meeting in January. This is a very, very talented group, compassionate group that truly cares about the Raising Hope mission. These are photos of events we've attended, health screenings we've organized, stories about us and friendships made. We attend large farmer-centric events, such as the Farmer Senior Show, the Fruit and Vegetable Conference, Farm Bureau's annual conference, and to spread the awareness about resources Raising Hope has to offer. And for additional information, you can follow us on social or check us out on our website. And now I'll turn it over to Mr. Dobson. We were also asked to talk about yesterday's event at the Capitol.
Yes, sir. We had our first ever Farmer Appreciation Day in the state of Kentucky yesterday out here right out front. They've been Farm Bureau and Beef Cow, different groups have had awards for just people in that group. But there's never been an awards program or appreciation day put together for farmers of Kentucky. You don't have to belong to no group, no organization. The door was open to everybody. And that come by from a dream out of Representative Reed up there and Representative Heath on that part there. It's also been a dream of mine to have some way of supporting farmers, showing we care on that part. Mr. Reed asked me a couple months ago about doing something other. Me and Mr. Dave went and talked to Keith and the commissioner, and one of the commissioner's words was, Dobson, this is my last hurrah. Let's make it the biggest and best show you can ever put together. And I think we did that yesterday. We had sponsors to help. Me and Mr. Reed kind of went through the head count out there yesterday, the amount of food that was served. And I believe the number we come up with was roughly 700 people stood out here in front of this Capitol yesterday and watched us say thank you to farmers. Everybody we asked showed up. We had FFA students from all over Kentucky here. I had scholarship winners from my Challenge Point programs to read. We've had multiple Challenge Coins programs over Kentucky over the past year and a half now. We got many more schools getting ready to start. As of today, there is 6,950 Challenge Coins being ordered in the state of Kentucky, with excess of 3,500 being passed out. There's currently 1,000 more in order by 2 more counties. Henry County and Boyle counties ordered their coins to start their Challenge Coin programs, where we teach young people how to shake hands and just tell farmers they appreciate it. It all boils back to what Dr. Witt and Emma studied is people just want to feel appreciated. They want to hear they're appreciated on that part there. And that's what it's all about on that. Just let people know, we had good food yesterday. We had Beef Cattle Association, Franklin out here cooking the burgers and beef furnished burgers, pork producers furnished burgers. And yesterday was just kind of a big family reunion out here in the capital of Kentucky. We had a great day. I thought it was on that part. I'll be around at the end of the meeting day. Me and Mr. Reed's talk. We got new Raising Hope Challenge coins here. Some of y'all like Miss King and Miss Webb over here, we've shook hands in the past and had some very good conversations in life. We got new Raising Hope coins back here. I got them, and anybody wants to shake a hand when we get done today, I'll be here to take care of whatever you need on that part there. On that, any questions? I'm here to answer them.
Thank you. I believe Representative Stalker has a question.
Hi, right over here.
Yes, sir.
Representative Sarah Stalker from Jefferson County. Thank you so much for being here. Mental health is undeniably one of the critical challenges that we are up against as a state, obviously as a country, and I really appreciate the focus specifically on farmers because I think it's a group that is often forgot about. My question / concern that I want to pose to you all, and that I would pose this to everybody, this is not specific just to farmers, just to be clear, is I want to know, you all outlined some of the slide for the develop community-based support systems, right? We had the preventions, the interventions, right? Those types of categories. And everything that I saw listed underneath the prevention to me seems more like a response or a reaction to the fact that we know that mental health is a crisis. What I think is important is for us to ask ourselves the question, are we identifying what the root causes are that are leading our farmers to have mental health crises that are leading to sometimes suicide?
Sure, I'll take that. All right. Stressors, too many unknowns. The weather, the markets, the just conditions. It's just there's the profitability, input costs. It's all the above. It's
a follow-up question, please.
Mm-hmm.
Putting you on the spot here, but what is it that this body can do to better support our farmers specifically around this? Because what I'm hearing, understandably, with the unknown, a lot of this is weather related. We know we have climate change. We know we have a lot of issues that we're up against. And so what I'm wondering is what can you charge this body with that we can do to better support our farmers to alleviate this kind of unbearable pressure that they're under?
one of the biggest things that we're focusing on is to reduce the stigma of talking about the stressors and you know, just making them feel appreciated, let them get it off their chest and talk about it. And a lot of times if they can just, like the challenge coin, it's designed to, if they commit when they shake Dale's hand, that if they ever get in a dark spot, they commit to calling and talking to him, right? So a lot of times if people just talk about get it off their chest, and it'll go a long way in helping them.
I'd like to add back
Go ahead.
onto the Jefferson County here. Just talking, having somebody, just knowing that there's somebody you can share this with and not going to laugh about and stuff. We're seeing people start to have communications. When you're shaking hands, and they ain't just shaking hands, it's talking to somebody that know you appreciate them. And you sit there and you get started talking. And over the past few years, we have got people, we call, we talk, we share the good days and bad days. But back specific to Jefferson County, I'm going to brag on something here for you. Seneca FFA is one of the most diversified FFAs in the state of Kentucky. I had a challenge team of kids up there last year, 34 students that went around Jefferson County. Jefferson County Farm Bureau funded the bill, bought the coins, and put the scholarship money up. 34 students in Seneca FFA circled Jefferson County, shaking hands in a challenge coin contest for scholarships. Two winners read their papers out here yesterday from Seneca FFA. Downtown Louisville had my biggest group of kids. It was so successful at Jefferson County Farm Bureau and Seneca FFA are getting ready to start it again this year. And for every student that participates in this, I sit with them. We sit one-on-one. And we sit here and talk to them. And every student that goes out gets their hands shut before they talk to. They learn how to make their own speech. But the ultimate goal is you walk up to somebody and tell them you appreciate them. Talk about positive things and meet them. That's what we're trying to do one-on-one. It may not be the best or the most, but we're seeing a lot of success out of that. And the young people is reading them out here yesterday. We keep the scholarship papers simple. Minimum 1 page, maximum 2 to put them all on the same playing field. But y'all listen to these students. When you come back, they've been times you'll cry with them, but when they come back and sit down and talk to you and tell you what they seen, what they done, and what they heard on that part, it's unreal. And then the shaking hands across Kentucky. I've done 1,484 handshakes as today. I added it up this morning. Dr. Witt sitting back here behind me has witnessed over 1,200 of them. She stands back and watches how the people does, and she can tell you her results directly. But you sit there shaking a man or a woman's hand, talking to them. And me and Mr. Reed's talked. Me and Senator Webb over here's talked on that part. When you stand there talking to them and they realize that you care and they hold your hand, you do not know where the stories go. I had one farmer one night to sit there. I shook his hand, went to see him. I knew he was having trouble trying to refinance. He was a good operator, but he was a big operator. Shook his hand. He stood there and told me, so if I was going to kill myself, I'd drive a truck off over the hill and you'd never know it. We spent 3 hours over the truck hood that night talking. Okay, good, bad, money, and everything. A year and a half after I shook his hand, I've shook his hand 3 times now. He called me one day and he was lost. And I could tell something wrong. He says, Mr. Dobson, and I finally asked him what's wrong. And I ain't going to call nobody out by names here. He said, I lost my coin. I carried it every day, and I lost it about a week ago, and it's really bothering me. Okay, so I went and seen him give another one. Had another farmer, shook his hand. I know this man for 25 years. And the demons and the stuff you deal with, it's just talking to somebody one-on-one, and these young people do the same thing. Dr. Witt was with me, and I went to shake his farmer's hand. He put me off that day. He said, I can't do it today. I thought, man, that was odd. So we met him the next night. He said 40 years ago, my wife, he held my hand while he did it. He said 40 years ago, my wife stood in the kitchen and shot herself in front of my oldest son. We don't know what people are carrying, but when you give them the chance, when we're talking about QPR and we're shaking hands and we're meeting these people, we are opening the door for them to have a chance to let something out. They don't have to come to us. We go visit them. And it's unreal where the stories go. And these young people are going out and doing this stuff. We're training them. And I'm not talking about kids. I'm talking about high school FFA students, okay, young adults. They're taking QPR classes. They're taking classes. They're learning how to talk. And then at the same time, when we're out here doing it, these young students have issues too. And it gives them an opportunity to share and help them out. So I feel we're accomplishing a lot. And you've seen it out front yesterday.
One last comment, Representative Stalker. You asked what this committee can do. All the trainings that we've developed, the CRUSH, the QPR and all that, we've only scratched the surface in propagating those. There's just so many more people we can get to and impact by continuing to fund those efforts. So,
To add this, I make about 20% of the requests I get, and these weeks they let me run 7 days a week. What can you do to help us? Help us have some more manpower out here going with us.
So, Representative Zalk, I know you had a follow-up, but I think in the interest of time and focus on this, we have 2 other people that want to testify. Can you gentlemen stick around? Because I think we have some questions that will be directed at you, but maybe if we put everything together, that'll be a better way to address this. So if y'all could step aside but not out for now, and we could have Dr. Cheryl Witt and Laura Whittle come forward and present your part of it.
Oh, do you want to go?
Once you get set up, make sure
Sorry,
you introduce
just go.
yourself for the record, and y'all begin when you're ready.
You good?
Excellent. Wow.
You want to get over here?
So there's your, it's
You sure?
Dr. Webb presentation right there.
You let me go first.
Yeah.
Is that what you want? We'll get it straightened out here in just a second. I'm Dr. Cheryl Dean Witt, and I'm actually, as of last week, I am the new state ag nurse. Going to work with Dr. Cox and Laura and team over at the College of Ag at University of Kentucky. It's an honor. It's an honor to have that job. It's my ultimate position. I just want to focus on, because I'm to talk about physical and mental health. I'm a nurse. And so that's the part of the mission of Raising Hope that I'm gonna highlight here today. We started Raising Hope, as Dale and Dave have talked about, and some of y'all have heard our discussion about 3 years ago. And as part of that, I convinced Dale to let me bring students to the Farm Machinery Show, because nursing students, as part of their community health, have to get out into the public and do some teaching, and it helps them to interact with the public. And I knew that, especially at that time, I was at the University of Louisville, try to get some students that were not accustomed to farmers interact with that population, because if you're a nurse in Kentucky, you're going to take care of some rural people, and a lot of them are going to be farmers. And so it let the students enhance their cultural humility that they can use when they graduate, get hands-on experience, and again, increase awareness in the non-farming public of what farmers do and deal with on a day-to-day basis, which is part of our Raising Hope mission. And after the students would do a health screening event, they also fill out a survey on their experience, a reflection, if you will, and you all will get a copy of one of those later on today after the session. Oh. Sorry. I'm looking at this. I didn't see that. No. Interesting.
Which one was it? This one?
You might have to end the Zoom.
Okay, I don't know what to do.
In the interest of time, as he continues to work through that, would you just go ahead and proceed with it?
Absolutely.
We can absorb.
You can
through-
imagine, can't you?
Yeah,
the
you know,
picture? Okay.
we're targeting you anyway.
So
Yeah, we all have these slides in
you-
our packets,
okay,
so we're good. We're looking at the same thing you are. Just
Perfect.
KET land may be a little shortchanged here today.
I can do that. So after this particular event, I spoke with Dale Dobson, as he and I worked very closely together, and we felt, because it was such a success, the Fair Board was happy, the people who participated were happy, U of L was happy, Ag Commission, everybody was happy about the health screening event and what we had provided. But the scientists in me and the academia, I had to figure out what was it about what we did that made it successful. And I knew that other people would need this information, especially the people that I would try to ask to give us money to expand it. So we needed to get some information. And so we weren't wrong in our thoughts about why this was working. My background is occupational health nursing, so I went to the NIOSH CDC worker health model. And when you talk about worker health, of course, healthy workers are healthy employees, are highly productive. And so, but there's so many things involved in the health and well-being of a person. But the model here from CDC and NIOSH, it doesn't really, it applies to workers, but farmers, they have unique factors to them that might need to tweak it just a little bit. And so then I looked at the model done by AgriSafe, which is a nonprofit organization that based their model off of the NIOSH CDC for worker health, and because they're more farmer oriented. And then I tweaked it myself because I work closely with Dale, and I appreciate his practical, no-nonsense approach to taking care of things. And so I call this the Kentucky farm model, where we have mental health, physical health, and safety, all with a synergistic relationship for optimal health of the farmer. And research does show that if higher levels of well-being are associated with decreased risk of injury, risk of developing chronic disease, better immune function, and of speedy recovery if you do get hurt, and increased longevity. So that's what our desire was. And certainly if you aren't safe on the farm, that increases your risk for injury and disability. Poor mental health increases your risk for developing chronic illness and disease, and high risk of injury. So we knew that there was a relationship between all of these factors and the overall health and quality of life for our farmers in Kentucky. So, and this kind of, you all had some questions, and I hope I can answer some of them that Dave, that you had asked Dave, because in our attempts to address the problem of stress and mental health in our farmers in Kentucky, we look. A lot of us are from academic universities, and so we looked at research and we found there's all this information that tells us that there is depression and suicide. Well, we know that already. We don't need to waste any more. Well, not that it was a waste, but we know it's out there. But the question is, what are we going to do about it? And that's really why Raising Hope became its entity, is because we wanted to do something about it, and it appeared nobody was. In the research, there was one article that talked about an intervention for stress and depression in farmers, but it had to do with farmers who were disabled. So farming is stressful. We know that. We live it. Many of us on our team do. So what do we need? But the deficit I found lied in the complexity and combination of the culture of farmers, rural health barriers, and the overall health-seeking behaviors of our farmers, particularly male farmers. Kentucky does lead the nation in female farmers, but the majority of information is on the male farmer. So the interventions that we designed needed to align with the culture of farming, so they'd be more receptive and utilize these interventions. And so that's what we kind of focus on. And so we need to know, why is this important? Well, farmers define their health by being able to get up and go to work. That's, if they can do that, they'll say they're healthy. We did find in a non-official survey that there was a statistical difference between men who saw healthcare providers on an annual basis versus women. So that's a key factor. And you'll see a comment by the student in her reflection. Oh. You'll see when you get you'll get a link. Oh, wow, thanks. That the student will make a comment, and there's also going to be a video in there. It talks about the farmer pain scale, because this is a comment made by a nurse just from last week. A farmer made a comment. She was assessing a patient. He said, I can live with this chest pain, but I can't with this shortness of breath. I just can't do what I need to do every day on the farm. And there's also an article that says, yeah, I would go, meaning go to the hospital, if my arm were cut off. My own brother-in-law here in this picture farmed his whole entire life, was having a heart attack for 3 days. Well, he had a load of cows to sell. He had something, so he'd feel bad, come in the house, text the master, and lay down. He'd do whatever he needed to do. But once he got to the University of Kentucky, his heart was too far damaged, and he died. So to change the health and affect the health and impact the health of farmers and farm families has it can be challenging, okay? And I think I've alluded to this. The characteristics that serve the farmer well to farm and be successful: highly independent, self-reliant, strong work ethic. We also had that rural masculine identity that influences the way they seek those preventative health care. They have long hours, physically hard labor, and we have to be able to affect these things can be a barrier to the farmer when seeking health care. And so what can we do about it? Well, I really believe, and Dale's talked about it a little bit too, we meet that farmer where they're at. It could be in the field, it could be in the barn, anywhere on the farm, major ag events. We go there, the farmers are gonna be there, or they've asked us to be there. We find that more and more every day. And because we're there, they look us in the eye, they shake our hands, that we've developed that relationship that aligns with the culture of farmers. Handshake, eye to eye, they trust you, they know what you're saying, and that you mean what you say. And it helps because both Dale and I come from farm backgrounds. So this is what is called farmer-centered interventions. And through Raising Hope, we've been able to affect those things. With Dale's Challenge Coin, I'm not going to talk about that too much, but again, that aligns with the culture of farmers, that we're there with them individually, one-on-one. They can feel us. They know that we care. We provided safety education. We've had the health screenings, and we even give hugs if people want them. That's what we do. I have even, as we progressed and developed this relationship, had a farm owner contact me to help them develop a plan so that one of their employees who is aging, let's just say, so he can be safe and the other people that work there can be safe. So we're working on a plan to keep that farmer employed on his farm, but to keep everybody safe. So we get calls every day. We can't keep up with it because people request what we have to offer. So I want to emphasize this piece is just a little bit of Raising Hope because I was only asked to speak about the health piece of it. So just to sum things up, we talked about this. Does it work? Have we impacted the health of farmers and farm families? And I'm going to say yes, because we do have 8 persons confirmed alive today because of our work. I will say that it's a little bit difficult to have exact information on who might have died by suicide but then didn't, who might have developed a chronic disease but we postponed that, or who would have had an accident but did not have that. And there are also things I cannot tell because of privacy issues with those persons. But we have stories that will bring you tears of happiness, and certainly we have received a lifetime of hugs that I will take every day. This is the reason why I do what I do, and it's the main reason most of us farm, is that family and being able to pass something on to our family. But we hope through Raising Hope that we can keep our momentum going as it is and keep our farmers in the field doing what they love to do. And I have had several, if they die in the field, that's a happy death. And the same thing as Dave, please contact us and look at our website and look at us on Facebook and Instagram. And we have a little Dale's already talked to you about the challenge coins. So I think that's it for me.
Thank you. I know we have some people. Oh, I'm sorry, Laura. Or did you?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that.
But only
Thank you.
if you have the time for it.
Here, I'll get up. Do you want to get up?
And just so you know, I do believe that this is really important issue. These are really important issues to address. But we have a number of members that have to be somewhere else for
Yes.
commitment at 10:30. So if people start to leave in the middle of this, I just wanted everyone to understand what was going on. Go ahead and proceed. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. My name is Laura Weddle. I'm an extension specialist at the University of Kentucky for farm stress and rural mental health. And we are developing and have already developed many programs and ways to address the issue of farm stress and rural mental health. So I like to say we're informing to transform. We're educating individuals, community members, business members, stakeholders, and transforming how they feel and think about farm stress and rural mental health on a community-based level. We did a SWOT analysis, and that has informed our work. And we found that the individuals we were working with preferred to receive their information through publications, trainings, media, and programs. That just so happens to be the bread and butter of what Cooperative Extension does. So I'm just going to highlight, you all have this, a copy, so I'm just going to highlight each slide and keep it very brief. But we have released a library of mental health publications that are research and evidence-based and peer-reviewed and written on a level that our average community member can understand. These are disseminated throughout our county offices, and our agents are able to utilize these publications, and then our community members have free access to them as well, and it can inform some of the work that they are doing on an individual and a community basis. The trainings that we're doing, the one that I want to specifically highlight on this slide is our continuing education webinar and training for Kentucky's advanced nurse practitioners. So we want to increase providers' knowledge of rural mental health challenges. We want them to have a more informed response when they work on a clinical level, in business scenarios, professional scenarios, and things like that. And we have created very similar platforms for different groups. We've also done mental health first aid. We have provided over 2,000 mental health first aid certification trainings over the past year and a half. That is like physical first aid, but it's for mental health challenges, and that's been a very important thing. We're training all of our agents how to recognize stress and farm stress and how to react and how to respond appropriately, and then refer that farmer or that farm family member on to get the appropriate help that they may need. We've used media to reach a wider audience. We've done podcasts. We have filmed short clips for shows like the Farm and Home Show in Bowling Green that gets 15,000 watches and viewers every single week. So we're trying to think outside the box and think of ways that different people can receive this information that we're creating. Last but not least, we have our programming. This is the kind of the heart of Extension. And Barn, Farm Dinner Theater, has been a joy to create and adapt and work with. BARN stands for Bringing Action Right Now to Mental Health and Well-Being. That was in collaboration with the College of Nursing. And essentially, it's a dual intervention. We have a workshop for youth participants where we teach them about mental health challenges, teach them how to identify farm stressors. They learn and are certified in QPR, which is the question, persuade, and response for suicide prevention. And with all that knowledge, they then create skits that they then put on for the community in a farm dinner theater format. And so they are learning, and then they're sharing that knowledge with agri-centered individuals, business people within their community. And that has been just a highly, highly impactful program. So we've done that, and then we've also collaborated with Raising Hope in our youth curriculum as well. So you all have lots of reading to do, and we appreciate your support and all that we do, and hope that you know that you share in a part of the outcomes that come from this.
Thank you. Appreciate your presentation today. Dale and Dave, if y'all don't mind coming up too, and just kind of, you'll have to pull up another chair. I know we have some questions up. If you will, as you're asking the question, if you will kind of address who you're targeting to, since we got 4 people up here, does help the flow a little bit. And I believe that I preempted Representative Stalker with her last follow-up question, so I'd like to go back to you, Representative Stalker, if you're still in the mood, and proceed with your follow-up question.
Thank you so much. I believe Dr. Cheryl Dean-Witt, correct? That you touched on a lot of kind of what I was getting to. I'm excited to know that you all are being mobile and that you're going and meeting farmers where they're at physically, because that can make a huge difference. The only other follow-up question that I had that I'm not really sure who this pertains to, because it was when the gentlemen were presenting, was that you had talked about a partnership with Mental Health of America and the fact that you'd raised $8,000. So curious about what those funds, what the intentions are for those to be used for. Is it to support the work that's currently being done, or is it earmarked specifically for one thing?
We haven't decided. We just received it yesterday.
Congratulations.
So I mentioned that we're putting together an advisory council. The usage of all funds will be decided by that advisory council.
Okay.
But I will add that I've already gotten an email or text about people want to donate to us. Mm-hmm. And since yesterday, I've received that text about donation.
That's wonderful. Well, what I heard you say, which really gets back to the initial question when the gentlemen were presenting, is what is it that we can do to help support your efforts? And what I heard you say is that we have more people asking for help from us than what you either have the capacity, the people power, and typically funds are tied with that, right? We like to pay people to do the work, particularly compassionate work such as this. So if there is an ask in the future, I would really love to hear what we could do as a General Assembly to support this work, whether that's deploying more mobile units, helping you all increase your staff, figuring out how do we scale up what it is you're doing, because the work is so critical.
Yeah, with again, manpower and capacity, both administrative and the boots on the ground folks. And I will say, something to put I'm tired of putting my stuff in the basement, but it would be nice if we had something that we could just pull in, have ourselves open it up, just like we did yesterday. And I will say that, especially in the summertime, there's a lot of nursing students to work. And so I have nurses coming to me all the time and calling to say, we want to help. And if I could there's only one of me, and there's one Susan Jones in Western Kentucky, and I'm sure we would have nurses that we could pay, or they would volunteer, and an administrative person to help keep up with all of this and to teach safety and to go out in our schools, again, to just have more people that can be out and about across the state.
Thank you. I believe Senator Webb had a question.
It's more of a comment, Mr. Chair, if you may indulge. I just want to thank Chairman Heath and Representative Breed and Dale for the vision that they had with this. And I'm fortunate to kind of been in on it since the beginning, and seen Dale work. He's devoted his life to safety and the health of agriculture overall and farmers. And Cheryl's got this new position. I think that's going to be a great partnership, and having her, or Dr. Witt, having her there to expand the horizons here. I just want to thank them for yesterday and what a team they assembled, and how the generational approach to asking for help and communicating in this day of social media and somewhat social awkwardness, if you will. This is going to help our youth. As you can see yesterday, by the way they communicate, by the way they present themselves, and I'd like to see it certainly expanded throughout Kentucky in a big way. I think that's the best thing we can do to help. And as far as some of those stressors that none of us really like to talk about. You know, there's just a Representative Stalker. There's, you know, land development pressure. That's probably the number one thing facing agriculture today nationally, as we, you know, work on the national level. Government regulation and the stress of the business model changing, computerization, and those things that might be foreign to some farmers, it creates additional stress. You know, supply chain and workforce, just like any other endeavor or employer, causes additional stress. And isolation is what I see can happen very easily, other than going to the stockyard or the mill. You know, you're isolated working on that farm, and you don't have enough help, and your margins. So it's just really like any other endeavor that we look at. But those are the things that I see firsthand, and glad to get one of those first coins and actually have a conversation with someone that I worried about finding on the back 10 one day in a not so good shape. So I appreciate the work you do and continue to, and I appreciate the support of this body for the endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Webb. I believe Senator Boswell had a question next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'm involved in farming and farm-related activity. There's no question in my mind that there are unique problems associated with farming and farm-related suicides. And so my question in your research, you know, there used to be a list published that showed the highest suicide type of occupations. Dentists, pharmacists are really at the top. And I'm just wondering, in your research, where does farming come in? Do you have any idea? I know it's relatively high to the number of population.
At one time, it reported farming as the number one, but they had made an error. They recalled that back because of the way that the survey was taken or the data was recorded. And I think now we're at farming is number three of occupations. I'm not quite sure who's number one. I do know veterinarians are quite high on the list. Construction workers, and I'm not sure about the others, but we're now number 3.
I just think it's important to show that it really throws more light on that it's much higher than the average population.
It is higher, and you have to also remember, especially here in Kentucky. Now, Kentucky's always had a high suicide rate because we have high rates of alcoholism and now drug abuse, but the way suicide is also recorded in the state of Kentucky, the numbers are that's a low number because it's not the actual. Because we have I don't need to say anymore. You know what I'm talking about. So yeah, so it's a little higher. So there's a worse problem actually than it appears.
Thank you, Representative Reed. I believe had a question next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A comment. Just want to thank you all. When my constituent Dale Dobson came with me with this vision back in 2019, we established Farmer Suicide Prevention Day on the Wednesday of Farmer Ag Safety Week. And in 2020, 2021, 2022, we've seen significant investments by the General Assembly. So if you're in this room and you voted on the 2021 and 22 budgets, thank you so much because you've seen the fruits of this labor. I just want to thank the Department of Agriculture. I want to thank Commissioner Quarles, Mr. Dale Dobson, Dave, Cheryl Witt, Elizabeth Settle back there. Everybody, if I start naming all the names, we did that yesterday. So we had a wonderful day at the Capitol yesterday. Thank you all for putting that on. We appreciate it. I know the farmers around the Commonwealth of Kentucky appreciate it. I know all the FFA kids and everyone that came out yesterday appreciate it. But you're all doing a wonderful job, exceeding expectations, changing lives every day. And Mr. Chairman, I just want to announce that upon adjournment, Mr. Dale Dobson has some coins with him today. So if any of you in the committee would like to take that challenge, Dale will shake your hand. He'll give you that coin, issue that challenge to you. And I know some in this room has already received that coin, but if you haven't, Dale has brought some with him, and he would love to extend that invitation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Reed, and thank you for agreeing to do that afterwards too, Mr. Dobson. Representative King, I believe, had.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Once again, I need to brag on Mercer County and our very own Dr. Witt just to affirm, we've heard her name mentioned by her colleagues today, and I hear it from my peers when I'm talking about agriculture and mental health issues from colleagues across the state. Your name comes up as being an authority in this space, so thank you. We appreciate that very much. And it also comes into play with the extension specialists that I work with in my own counties that I serve, and again, all across the Commonwealth. The good work firsthand that you see these folks on a day-to-day basis and in all the programs that you implement. But I also wanted to mention Miss Elizabeth Gordon, and I see her many nights and on many weekends in local communities sharing firsthand with farmers, and she's always got some of her adorable daughters with her. So she is very dedicated to this program as well, and I just wanted to thank all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Last one on our list, I believe, is Senator Chambers Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to everyone who has presented today. Mr. Chair, it has been a wonderful and very informative agenda, so thank you for that. As I was listening to you all, it occurred to me that our conversation about funding basic science is linked into this conversation about mental health. That is, we're doing research to understand how we make our crops more resistant to disease and to produce more and to find more efficient ways that reduce these accidents and these wear and tear on farmers' bodies. That's also important. And so I was wondering if someone could speak about, does that connection make sense to you all? Do you all think of it that way, that the more we do that basic research to better understand how to maximize our farming technology and make sure we're making those crops more resistant and we're giving farmers more time to relax and be with their families and do other things? Are those conversations happening? Are you all, do you believe that as we advance our sort of basic science, that also can feed into improving our farmers' mental health and their overall well-being?
Say absolutely. Anyway, anytime that you can influence the output of your product and make it a better quality product, you're going to have greater income, which, again, if you look at that model, there's just that relationship. And I see that. I was excited when I heard Dr. Cox talk about what UK College of Ag is getting ready to do to expand on all of those areas, because I can clearly see how all of that is going to affect the health of our farmers based on these models.
Well, I'm excited to see all of you all working together to improve the quality of life for our farmers, one of our most important industries. And so thank you all for the very important work you do.
Thank you. I'm going to use a prerogative of the chair to wrap up with the last question. If you have the mic and the gavel, you get to do these things. Something that's been, I've watched and listened through this, and I've lived this for 3 generations in my family. And I think it's really important that you guys are stepping into this space as our environment changes in our rural areas especially. I was just sitting smiling to myself as y'all were talking about this. You couldn't have put a gun to my grandfather's head or any of his friends and gotten them to talk about anything that was going on inside their mind. But they had group therapy sessions at John Brown Service Station when it was just them, and they would sit and work through. They would sit and work through a lot of these issues. Mm-hmm. But our rural environments changed a lot, and John Brown Service Station no longer stands. Much less any of the people that went down there for those. They would have never thought about them as group therapy sessions. But that's what they were, and they filled that void by supporting each other. And as we've had consolidation in agriculture and contraction in population in our rural communities, I think we've lost a lot of that. And something else that we've lost in this process is a lot of our medical and mental health providers in our rural areas. This is something that's difficult. We've talked about a lot of the questions have been proactive, and I think that we're really limited in how proactive we can be on these issues. Someone asked the question earlier about what we could do to eliminate the problems for farmers, and the answer is nothing. And one of the mental health problems, the big genesis of the mental health problems with our agricultural producers is the complete and utter lack of control that we have over the things that are most important to us. We can't control the weather. We can't control the markets. I always thought it was funny growing up that we had these guys that would pretend they weren't educated at all, knew more about weather patterns in the Mato Grosso area of Brazil than people that lived in Brazil did. But everything is outside of their control, so they have such a limited area of control that it's very taxing on people that have this individualistic persona to have very little control over things that are so important. And there's a real void there, and that void's gotten greater, I believe. And I'm from Fulton County originally, and there were 3 or 4 doctors in Fulton County when I was growing up. Now there's 0, and there probably never will be. But the nurse practitioners and everything have kind of stepped into that role. And Dr. Witt, I believe, said something, and I wanted to have a long intro to a short question to ask if there is has been any efforts or any thought given to coordinating with our nurse practitioners in that group that are in our rural communities to help integrate that maybe into some curricula. I think that some people had asked about things that we could help with. I think that's something that we could help with, because that seems to be on a supply-demand curve where we're going in rural Kentucky, and I just wondered if y'all had gotten into that space yet.
We have, and that's certainly a vision. Again, the nurse practitioners, and we've talked to Fulton County and a lot of the counties that have very little healthcare access, and that in collaboration with it. Hopefully, I've already had a meeting with University of Kentucky, their physicians liaison committee. If we could collaborate with the healthcare system like U of L, UK, take the preventative measures out and work with the nurse practitioners and or health departments in those areas to coordinate a circuit, if you will, and the people know us, trust us, they'll get that preventative health measures taken because we've taken it to the people, and they can certainly take advantage of it. And if it means going at 5 o'clock to whatever the gas station was, we'd be glad to do it. And I've already talked with Jennifer a long time ago about pulling up at extension offices. But it's been very difficult and challenging to try to figure out, though, how to get to the farmers that don't come into town, that stay on the farm all the time. That's always a concern of Dr. Jones and myself. How do we get to those people? We can get to those people hanging out to the, and there's a lot of peer pressure that goes on too.
This generation will actually go to the doctor, so you've got an end there.
So yes, we have talked about it, and the practitioners are calling me. What can we do? So yes, that is on our.
Well, Allie Lusk is ours in Hickman, and she would be well served on this, knowing her husband and in-laws well. She lives that every day. We thank y'all for coming in and for all the work that you've done in this space. It's something that doesn't get talked about and is really needed in our rural communities, because when we have someone to fall under the surface of the water on these issues, it affects a lot more, than just that person and their family. It affects the communities they live in as well. So we appreciate y'all's work in this. Last thing on our list, I want to just note there's no action needed on this, but the University of Kentucky Cannabis Center 2023 report is in our materials for anyone that wanted to look at it. Our next meeting is Thursday, October 19th at 9 a.m. And with that, we are adjourned.